My name is Gary Cruz, and I'm the Student Activities Director and Peer Resources Coordinator at John O'Connell High School in the Mission District in San Francisco. I teach 2 peer resources classes, and one of those classes is a youth-led research class.
Peer resources basically is like students trying to help the school improve.
We do conflict mediation, mentoring.
2 years ago, the youth-led research class conducted a survey to kind of find out what the needs of the school were. One of the questions asked how many of our students plan on going to 4-year college or beyond. And it was a majority of the students.
One day Mr. Cruz came in and he had some statistics from the district on how O'Connell is ranked. We were ranked like the lowest of all the schools in the district.
Many of the students come to the school with issues that are beyond academics, so we have to kind of work around that.
We have a lot of students failing classes.
So on the one hand, we have these students who really want to go to college, or at least say they do. And on the other hand, for some reason, the performance in the classroom and the things that they need to do to get there, they weren't accomplishing those steps.
We know we could be the best. People just underestimate us because we're a small school full of Latinos and, all the, as they quote, bad kids are sent down here.
They've decided to focus their energy on how can we improve the learning in the classroom and the teaching in the classroom so that our students can be better prepared to meet those goals, to go on to college, to do the things that they need to do to get there.
So from there we did a lot of research. We did surveys for staff and students. We conducted interviews on staff. We looked into the observations where we got a chance to sit in the classroom and observe a teacher and then let them know what they're doing well. That's how we created the best practices.
My students decided to create a best practices club modeled after the best practices club at a high school in Lexington, Massachusetts.
We did undergo training through SF-CESS with Greg Peters.
And so when you guys do your best practices club, what you're trying to do is you're trying to find teaching practices that are what we call culturally responsive or culturally relevant. I'm the director of the San Francisco Coalition of Essential Small Schools. The work we do, we work with the schools, not just small schools, but any schools who care about looking at their programs, making them more personable for students, getting to know students, meeting them where they're at in order to address and overcome a lot of the issues and the conditions at play that lead to the achievement gap that our system's struggling with. If we don't know another's culture, we're using our rules to define them.
Working with Greg Peters was a wonderful chance to bring in an outside resource who is an expert in the field, who the students could hear and could really trust that the information that he's sharing with them is something that's going to work for them.
White culture brings up people to say there are winners and losers and you have to be the winner. African American culture is actually more about the collective. And I actually think that's true of many of our cultures, where people are supposed to work together to get to a common good for the group. We're talking about a student population that is predominantly students of color, a large EL population, and one of the things that I've always noticed coming into this school is that the community and the culture here is just, it's tangible, it's beautiful, it's so remarkably respectful and respectable that it's hard to ignore that that's a variable at play in what happens in the school. So what we're trying to do in schools is force feed a different way of learning and teaching. And what that does is by default benefits some kids and disadvantages others. And that's the challenge on your classes and on your teachers. Are we learning enough about each other's stories that we can make meaning so that we can have more successful classrooms?
We went to the Boys and Girls Club with Mr. Cruz and then about 3 or 4 students from UC Berkeley. Kind of trained us on to what to expect from a teacher or what to observe or how to take the notes.
They collaborated with UC Berkeley, who has offered me some technical assistance.
For the past several years, I've had a grant from the William T. Grant Foundation. I got the grant because I was interested in studying youth-led research, which is a kind of youth development approach where young people identify problems that they want to change in their school or community, and then they get research training in how to study that problem, understand it better, gather data about it, and then come up with recommendations or action steps to try to actually improve it.
So my job was to come every week and observe what was happening in the classroom, get to know the teacher, get to know the students, and then also kind of be a support for them if they had questions about how to approach something, or how to do a survey, how to do a focus group, that sort of thing.
We kind of did a practice observation there. They showed us a video and then we had to take notes on it. And then we saw how different everybody from the group took notes. And then what each person kind of observed and what caught their attention.
It was really fun to do the training with them because they all had a lot to contribute.
You know, they're really working on a project in groups, and it's something that they have power over as opposed to just a kind of a standard curriculum.
And it was also wonderful just to expose our students to Berkeley grad students, you know, and have them interact with them in a training. We asked the teachers to volunteer, and we were shocked by the number of staff members who wanted to participate in the observation program. It was probably 2/3 of the staff who voluntarily said that they would be observed.
They were looking for teachers that were interested in getting involved, and I figured this would be a great opportunity to have a student observe my classroom and for me to get some type of feedback from a student's viewpoint.
We were shocked, but we were also very pleased, and we felt very supported by the school. Because it's not an easy thing for a teacher to be observed by a student in a pilot program.
Hazel Cartala approached me because I have her in class, and she just said, "Hey, we want to do observation," and your name popped up, and she just asked for my permission, and I said, "Yeah, no problem."
And then I asked them, "So who would you like to start with?" And they said me, and I said, "Okay." And so as I was saying okay, I actually got very nervous because I'm not used to being observed.
So with the observation process, first we do a pre-observation conference.
They wanted to know what I wanted them to look for. Then they kind of gave me some feedback of what they may want to look for also.
We taught them how to kind of approach the person and then how to present themselves as well.
Basically, we meet with them, ask them questions about what's going on with the class, what they're going to do that day.
I told them they were going to come in and see.
If a teacher asks us for a certain thing they want us to observe, then we have to do that. And if there's anything else, then it's just like kind of like a side note.
They asked me specifically, they're like, "What do you want me to look for?" And they even gave me some cues because I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted them to look for.
Are there any issues of equity you'd like us to consider as look for best practices?
I have one freshman student who can tend to check out and not participate. So if you guys could look to see if I motivate her.
They asked really good questions. They're very professional, and I really felt like I wasn't talking to a student. I was talking to almost like a peer.
From there, they get to sit in the classroom and do the observation. We observe his honors class.
I'm used to teachers, administration, walking in the door and observing.
So I got nervous, and I was surprised that I got nervous because obviously I'm the one who has trained them.
I still get nervous when someone else walks in. It's, in a way, it's like you're invading my home.
It was more relaxed with the students because they're not my bosses.
They came in, but I hadn't cleared off the far corner of the room. So they actually sat almost as part of the group.
They did the observation, and that was for a whole period.
So all these fears are coming up for me because I know the behind the scenes work that takes place, and I know what could go wrong.
That's pretty fun, like observing the teachers. Like you get to see what their lesson is.
I was kind of more engaged on the lesson, but then I still kept in mind what he wanted us to observe.
So this is one of the main reasons why we have them go in groups of 3. So that in case one student misses something, that another student was able to capture in their notes.
It was nice to see how the students were engaged in the lesson.
I think the students got something out of it because they were part of a process they usually aren't.
I think it went well because we didn't disturb the class.
To me, it felt like they were just part of the class. And at certain points, I even forgot they were there.
By the end, I kind of breathed a sigh of relief, and I was actually very appreciative of the fact that they had selected to observe me, because I thought this is really important that I go through this process, because I've made some assumptions about what I think the teachers are feeling, but now I know firsthand.
And then they'll put their notes together. They'll get, I believe it'll be the best 5 and highlight those.
They select 5 pieces of evidence that speak to what the teacher asked them to look for.
After that, we do the post-observations, tell them what went good, what we seen, what they were asking for.
This is what you're doing well, you should keep it up, and not actually put them down or judge them at all.
It's good feedback to see that, I think I'm doing something, but if I don't know for sure that the students realize that that's why I'm doing it, then it doesn't really matter.
I felt like what I had to say about how the teacher's teaching actually matters.
I have to vary my teaching methods to help all the students, give them the opportunity they need to gain the academics that are expected of them.
They saw me going around from group to group to check in with groups to make sure that the groups were staying on task and staying focused. But they also noticed that I wasn't giving the groups answers.
It showed me that teachers do care about what we have to say too, not just like what other co-workers have to say about their teaching, but also their students.
For example, I may have a student that would prefer to have hands-on, manipulative, standing up and trying to learn the math. I have other students that are more listeners. I have to look at all the different styles and I have to provide for everybody.
I need to know that the students get it and that the students know why I'm doing it, or at least that it's having some effect.
They really felt that I really cared about what I was doing.
They're very generous and nice with what they had to say.
That made me feel really good, because here I'm hearing it from a student's viewpoint that I was doing my job and I was doing it the best that I could. So that was fabulous.
When I think of teachers, I think they were just here to make money.
I would think that teachers don't really care. They just want to teach.
But then when I started being in this class and I started doing classroom observations, I realized that they're really here, to help us out, to, be successful in life.
I was so honored to be in this project that I saw a different perspective on teachers.
Once you see how they really prepare, you take more consideration about how they do it and that they really take their time.
I want this experience to be for everybody to know, hey, they're not just your teacher, they're your friends too, and there's more to them than just their credential.
I realized that they want to help us. They want to see how we all learn best.
I actually believe Cruz really was one of the ones who took the notion of really empowering students, both by finding ways for their voices to be heard, but for their voices also to be informed by authentic data. I thought he was actually taking it very seriously, but I also thought the results were pretty remarkable and pretty wonderful.
To have students observing teachers and giving them feedback on their teaching practice is actually kind of radical for public schools. It doesn't seem like it should be that radical, but it is. And the way that they did it, the students here and the way Mr. Cruz trained them to do it was just so thoughtful and systematic. And so they did it in such a way that they really engaged the teachers in a positive, constructive way.
But I really feel like by preparing these students to become thorough observers, that we elevate that status, and hopefully the staff and students can have more meaningful conversations between the two.
Once we get teachers realizing that this is a good practice, it's not just about, oh, look, you get to talk about what you do well. It's really about empowering empowering teachers to meet students where they're at by empowering students to have their voices count.
They kind of help us to be a role model for everyone.
Most teachers, they get a different view of you, but then once you actually start working with them, then they see that, oh, you're more than just that you can actually change, and they don't keep that perspective of you.
And it's kind of like good to hear from them that they're actually thanking us for helping our school to be better.
I feel more responsible because we are doing something for the whole school, not just for me. So I have to keep in mind not just my opinions, but everybody else's. And I feel more mature, and I think that it helps me grow as a person.
There's a new